Welcome, everybody. Today we're again missing our lovely Tara McBride to host us, so you're stuck with myself and our portfolio manager, Clayton Allison, here at PrimeCap. And today we're going to cover a topic that is probably going to be a fun one for us, financial advisors. And just to level set, Clayton and I are investment professionals. We are not financial advisors, but we work with a good number of them here at PrimeCap. And so for you all as individual investors and how you may or may not work with a financial advisor, we're just going to cover a lot of topics about how we interact with them and the role of a financial advisor with regards to a wealth plan. So with that, Clayton, you do our custom accounts here at Prime Capital, so you get to see advisors do custom things. So from your point of view, what kind of different advisors are out there from like a personality standpoint, planning standpoint, and just overall approach to the industry, and maybe some pros and cons of each that client should think about as they're choosing a financial advisor?
Yeah, thanks, Will. And once again, sorry that we're missing Tara yet again, and sorry to saddle you guys with the two of us. But to answer your question about what types of different advisors there are out there, we'll kind of hit the nail on the head. There's a wide swath of different advisors. Some very much like to lead with investment acumen. They're going to pick the investments. They know all the nooks and crannies as to what that investment is and what it does. Then you have others that are going to lead primarily with financial planning. Well, what is your objective as a household, as a client? Are you trying to save for college in 20 years for your newborn? I know I am with my newborn, and that's one thing that I'm doing. Are you trying to figure out estate taxes and things of that nature so you have more of a tax planning focus from that standpoint of things? Or are you just somebody that is very uncomfortable with, having your money in the market, and you need somebody that has experience there that can kind of coach you up as to what you should be doing, what your risk tolerance really is, and giving you really just more or less some coaching on that, aspect of things. Not everything needs to be a hedge fund or being into the nitty gritty of every single detail of every investment or needing to know the inner workings of federal monetary policy and tax situations or geopolitics. Sometimes you just need to understand what you need to do with your money to accomplish that goal longer term. So to answer your question, well, it really much varies depending on the underlying client.
Yeah, and I loved it. So essentially, the main theme there was to know your client. And that is ultimately the role of the financial advisor. So we work with many financial advisors that work with many clients like yourself. So we don't necessarily have the time to get into individual circumstances around, how much you make, how much you spend, how much have you saved, what are your goals and objectives with, time horizon and various pockets of money, on top of all the other things you just mentioned, Clayton, like wealth planning, banking, etc. So from your standpoint, what's the difference between an asset manager and wealth management?
That's a good question. An asset manager usually probably has a much more concentrated or niche objective they're trying to meet. Like let's say, in my instance, I'm running a international stock portfolio on emerging markets. Well, my entire objective is to build a portfolio of international emerging market stocks in like Southeast Asia or African companies to try to outperform, just purely performance based. Now, from a wealth manager perspective, they're trying to take into account your entire holistic household plan. Like we talked about, the college planning, the estate taxes, and also the performance figure on top of that. They're trying to take into account the entire household approach, where an asset manager is very much just focused on outperforming their respective benchmark for one specific purpose. So well, to your point, it really comes down to, all right, am I just looking for performance, or am I looking to do right by my family and myself and my situation going forward?
Right. Yeah. So you could say, like you and I, with regards to managing portfolios and models, have a very narrow approach because as investment professionals, we have to stay within whatever investment guidelines there are with the approaches that we manage. And the reason that is important is because as we work with our financial advisors, we have to level set communication. So we don't need to have our strategies get, outside of the fairway or off the road per se, because they've got expectations set with clients, and we need ultimately to bridge that communication gap and not have anything lost in translation. So again, thanks for joining today. I got one last question for Clay. We're going to take the reverse side here. What type of investor might not need a financial advisor?
I would typically say that, maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this. Honestly, if you're just starting out in the markets, like let's say you're a college kid coming straight out of school, you got your first time job, and you're very new to this whole thing. Now, it's not a bad thing to try to do some research on your own, understand like what is the stock market, what are index funds, what are ETFs. But at the same time, maybe it doesn't make the most sense to you to be reaching out for an advisor at, your first time full-time job, coming out of school, you have very little money to work with. And to that extent, you're not going to really be able to take advantage of really where the benefit of having an advisor comes into. Because like I said earlier, it's not all about investment selection. It's about understanding what your long-term plan is and really managing your entire household's finances. So unfortunately, as you kind of go up in net worth and your investment profile kind of scales upward, you can start to really kind of get the benefits that you're paying for when it comes to a financial advisor, whether that's tax assistance, estate planning, financial planning, and then investments kind of bringing up the rear a little bit. So, it's hard to say. Some people are very much more focused on these things than others that have other jobs that they got to focus on. So I'd say, probably on the younger side of things, I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to go reach out to a financial advisor right away.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you. So what I heard there was as life gets more complicated is when you need to hire a professional, which I think kind of takes hold in everything we do in life. Even the story you were telling the other day about trying to fix your garbage disposal, I think you called a professional in once it got too complicated, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Took him 30 minutes to do what it took me 3 hours to try to do. So.
Right. So again, missing Tara today, but thanks again for joining in. Again, we talked about financial advisors. We have plenty of them here. If you feel like you need help or want help, reach out. We can do free consultations to figure out the right fit. And as always, stay informed, stay invested, and we'll see you next week.